So, you're looking to shake things up with a new Swarmkeeper Ranger character, and you're in need of a couple ideas. For those of you who are familiar with this channel, we've already taken all of the official classes in D&D and flavored them into different archetypes and ideas for your table. So what happens if we dive deep into a singular subclass? How many different ideas can we come up with to make your Swarmkeeper unique, and maybe even change what a Swarmkeeper really means? Hello Acolytes, welcome to the Cleric Corner. My name is Riker, and here we talk about all things Dungeons & Dragons, tapping into our higher powers to create worlds more unique and stories more impactful. As we look at the Swarmkeeper Ranger, we know that character creation is one of the funnest parts of D&D. What's even more fun is when we create concepts or find new ideas that we didn't think of and may have not even existed in D&D before. So gather your swarm and be ready for inspiration, because we're going over 10 character concepts. Starting with the Zookeeper, we already have a plethora of different options when it comes to animals inside of our swarm. Bugs, arachnids, birds, crabs, bats, lizards, snakes, fish, you name it. Take away the Lord of the Rings Ranger type and replace it with your kind, neighborly cat lady. But remember, we also have some interesting and different beasts in D&D that can also populate our swarms. We have sturges, flying snakes, tressims, and other things that you can just open up the monster manual and figure out how these creatures came out of your backstory. If we are a type of dragon hunter, or we kind of just vibe with dragons, we can look at the egg hunter hatchling or the horde scarab, possibly even allowing you to mess with dragon hordes in the future. We can come from a wizardly background and have a swarm full of homunculi, or germlanes, a tiny underdark creature that loves rats. And on that note too, who says that your swarm has to make up of just one type of creature? Why don't you have germlanes and rats kind of incorporate your swarm, or really just have a literal zoo around you? You can have frogs, salamanders, axolotls, and fireflies incorporate your swarm if, say, your favorite terrain was the swamp, or lizards, burrowing owls, snakes, and kangaroo rats if you came from the desert. But after animals, we come to the next closest thing, the greenhouse. We get flora and fauna on our side as we learn to manipulate plant matter. The subclass already mentions twig blights, but why not have a swarm of rose petals swarm around you, or dandelion seeds, or grass blades, doing like a razor leaf attack for those Pokemon fans out there. Perhaps you're a potato or a tomato farmer and you attack with bludgeoning vegetables. Perhaps it's a swirl of seaweed, cactus, pine cones, or pollen. Of course, taking the whole biome idea too and asking yourself what kind of plants come from the biome or your favorite terrain. Even from the Underdark, your plants could look more like mushrooms or a floating bioluminescence, creating a type of mood lighting as you're disemboweling your enemies. Or your swarm is just a cloud of these spores that these poisonous mushrooms give off. The plants you summoned could also be awakened like animals, say the campestry, the singing mushroom, or the vegapygmy. I can also picture a bunch of small mushrooms that are walking on their vines in a very human way, but you could also just summon your swarm from whatever is around you, say like the roots beneath your feet, whipping your enemies and moving you around. There's a lot of aesthetics on this one. But plants are just one element. What about earth, fire, wind, or water? The Elementalist creates a swarm aura of these elemental planar magics. And another possible way of bringing bending into your games, a water swarm is a watery sphere, or a foggy mist, or a bunch of ice crystals. Earth could be sand, rocks, or sharpened gemstones. Air could be a stinking cloud, or a cloud kill, or a very concentrated electric storm. Your fire swarm could be a wreath of flames around you, or globules of magma, kind of like a lava lamp. Or just do an assortment of all of them and have your very own avatar state. To go a little further, what if your magic didn't come from the elemental planes, but let's say the upper and lower planes? They're positive and negative. Looking to the stars, your swarm could be a mini galaxy or solar system that orbits you, or spots of light in constellations that creates your very own star dome. Or taking from the lower planes, your swarm could literally just be your shadow, animated and fighting alongside you, kind of like Peter Pan. And even so, better try to keep it on a leash or it might escape. But now let's take a spiritual approach with the Spiritual Guardian, and yes, it's exactly what it sounds. Just as the Spirit Guardian spell that the clerics have, where it's a summoning of ancestral spirits or otherwise to help fight alongside you, the Swarmkeeper Ranger works basically the same way. Or you can take another spell from the clerical spell list as inspiration, the Spiritual Weapon, and have a bunch of spiritual weapons around you as your swarm, complements of maybe whatever god you serve. Or just a pure divine energy or radioactivity that emanates out of you as you take on more of a divine state. This could also take more of a druidic approach, where the spirits that kind of embody your swarm are more nature spirits, or spirits of the critters that have long passed. An undead flavor might change these ancestral spirits into ghosts or wraiths, or a scientific approach where they're holograms. But the next flavor is a menagerie of non-living material that you can use as your swarm with the Telekinetic. And this one, we take spells like animated objects to the next level, where you have knives, swords, or ninja stars that encompass your swarm. Now, this might be specialization in martial for your character, but if you wanted to go more wizardly, your swarm could just be books, paper, and ink. Perhaps the paper is even folded into different origami cranes that attacks your enemy and gives them paper cuts. Pots and pans if you're a cook, or possibly glass if you're a glass blower. But these could also be animated dolls or stuffed animals if you wanted to take the creepy child approach. But of course, your swarm again doesn't have to be specific, as you can just telekinetically lift up whatever's in your vicinity. But it also doesn't have to be telekinetic really either. You could have an artificer flavored Swarmkeeper and create little devices that you can activate, and a bunch of little needles on propellers kind of go up in the air and swarm around. And needles on propellers, I realize I'm giving someone nightmares tonight. But you know what I mean, like tiny metallic robotic insects that you can activate. You can also reflavor your Swarmkeeper as, say, Magneto and pick up magnetic items or metal. Maybe even have a tornado of barbed wire? But speaking of the Marvel universe, you could also do something with the cape of Doctor Strange. You have animated clothes that help fight your battles with you and fly you up in the air and pull you out of danger. Now, I should mention that a lot of these ideas include possibly different damage types that's not included in the subclass, where originally it's just piercing damage. I personally am very open to changing damage types to create a new story for your character, but work with your DM to make sure that it's okay. But DMs also know that you're in complete control of what you throw your players, and can very much make it a challenge. The same way as you're able to say no to a player if a certain concept really doesn't fit your setting. It is a collaborative game after all. But hey, I just want to cut in here halfway and just say thank you for watching this video. I'm going through a number of different video concepts and different ideas, and really weighing what's popular and what you guys really like. What to continue on full force, or maybe possibly wait a time until it's a little bit more relevant. Or tell me in the comments below your different flavor ideas for the Swarmkeeper, or tell me about one you've already played. If this video does well, I'll be sure to look into other subclasses that we can dive deep into. And of course, having polls in my Patreon to figure out which ones to do next. But even if no one likes this video, I appreciate that you do. This next concept is one that I'm really excited for because it brings in an element of my childhood, the Flubber. This being an example of a Swarmkeeper that works with oblexes and ooze spawns. Rangers are known to traverse all over the material plane and even the multiverse, and so favored foe or not, they love working with these giant amoebas. These could be either little ooze bubbles that kind of float around you, or literally blubbers that go around and fight by your side. Or it's a puddle of ooze that literally comes out of your form as you're part ooze yourself. Be it a clear kind of ooze like a gelatinous cube, or black from black pudding, or yellow from ochre jelly, or even the very rare white ooze from the Arctic. If your ranger comes with a specific favored terrain, ask yourself which kind of ooze comes from this area. You can also kind of mix the ideas with this as well as the animated objects from the Telekinetic, and have a bunch of mimics that swarm around you, changing forms in the air and becoming different objects on demand. Take up the cantrip Minor Illusion and reflavor that as your mimic becoming whatever you're trying to portray. But next we look at other planes of existence that we can pull inspiration for our ranger. So starting out, let's look at the Fae, and in the subclass it does mention pixies to be in your swarm, so that includes intelligent creatures as well. So summon a horde of mining-loving Briganox that have their soul outside of their bodies. Sprites, brownies, and fairies all fall under this Fae umbrella. You could also have a bunch of snack-loving Kilmiyus? Something like that, but they love hospitality and generosity. Or a Quickling, which are known to be incredibly fast, and hey, the enemy might not even see it coming. Or you can have a swarm of fairy dragons. Not that fairy dragon. That fairy dragon. But hey, this might be the only way to have a swarm of dragons to aid you, but that's up to you in the DM. Moving from the Feywild to the Abyss, let's look at the Fiend. Your ranger took deals with demons or devils and have their magic from that plane. Perhaps even a warlocky feel when you summon in some imps or quasits as a swarm. Or take a creepy approach with the Vargul or Vargui. Those double L's kill me. Or become a meme and have a bunch of abyssal chickens. You can take one from the Elementalist, and instead of the wreath of flames that you get from the fire plane, This time it comes from hell. But now going to the Shadowfell, we find the Undead. And we've already mentioned race and ghost with the Spiritual Guardian, but there's a lot more that we can do with this. Take all of the animals in the Zookeeper that we talked about and just give them exposed ribs and missing eyeballs, and you get the picture. And instead of summoning them from a different plane, you could literally just pull them from the earth beneath you and kind of have a Russian roulette on what comes out. Skeletons of squirrels and cats that may fight by your side. Or you can have just a bunch of sharp bones that you've whittled down from previous kills. Or go full minimalist and have just an aura of necrotic energy around you, or have your shadow that we talked about be a little bit more evil. Some other fun swarms might be a bunch of crawling hands, which to me is absolutely terrifying, or a bunch of flame skulls that fly around you with their teeth chattering threateningly, or summon just a bunch of will-o-wisps, which are very fitting because they're known to bring adventurers to their doom. Next, leading us to the Far Realm, and this one might be solely for the DM because it can get pretty intense pretty quick. But hey, at your table, it can look like anything. But with the Far Realm, you can have a Swarmkeeper have a swarm of Mind Flayer tadpoles that are desperate to force people through Ceramorphosis. So yeah, this would be a complicated PC, but a horrifying BBEG. Same with Slod tadpoles, honestly. Just live out your alien dreams. But luckily there are a few comparatively less scary things that you can take and be a part of your swarm, say intellect devourers and squidlings. Combine this with a bunch of zombie summoning spells and you can have your swarm of intellect devourers actually replace the brains of those that have fallen. Or you can use the Gazer, which is the cutest little beholderkin. Or take from the recent Netherdeep book and take from their aberrations with the Sorrowfish or Serpent Maw. And then of course everyone's favorite aberration, the Flumph. But whatever you choose, just be excited for a character that you can really make your own. Use one of these or create something new. I just hope that I got the inspiration flowing. Remember to let me know what you want to see next, and you can explore other ideas for races and classes in my other videos. But in the meantime, go out there and spread the good word of D&D and make the world a better place, both on and off the table. See you in the next one.